Hey, welcome back. I'm excited to be doing a Demko collection update at my desk because the Demko collection has been largely narrowed down. Now, I don't feel like this is that original of an idea right now because, frankly, the knife market's not been what it was 6 to 12 months ago, and I think a lot of people have sold off some of their collections. That's not exactly what's been going on here with me. I think I've more adapted my taste. There's a little bit of that. Hey, if I'm not, if it's going to be losing value, I definitely don't want it in the collection. I haven't really seen that too much with the Demkos, but anyways, the exciting part here is I've really got this narrowed down to just the knives that I feel like I really don't want to part with. And it is a mix of full-size 80/20s up here and some of the customs, a couple 80/20s, some 80/22s, there's an 80/15, and these are some 80/20.5s. I might let one of those go at some point here, but I'll get into it. I just wanted to sort of call out, this is down to 18 knives. At one point, the Demko collection was up to like 50 different variants. The reason I did this today is because today I sold my last 80/20s that was not textured titanium. I had it's a bunch of G10, a bunch of Grivory. They're great, don't get me wrong. If I was carrying 80/20s variants, that's actually probably what I would carry instead of the textured titanium. But I don't carry 80/20s personally. It's just a little too big for my carry usage. I normally carry 80/20.5. So this narrowed down collection, it's all here for a reason, and I'll walk through what it all is. And I don't think you could start this video without starting here. And the reason is, this is the original. This is not only original in the sense that it's this original model where it's the 80/20 full size, the full thickness on the blade, but also because it was before he even started marketing by he, I mean Andrew Demko, and I don't know if John Demko was involved at this point. I think he was, though. Started marking the blade steel here in the top of the blade here. So inside here where the shark lock engages, you can see where it actually fits in here. As this comes around, the shark lock locks into the back of the blade there. They normally mark the blade steel there, and I'll show you an example of that on this one here. This one is 3V, and you can see it was hand etched in these early models as they moved along, and I just have one of the more recent full size. They laser etched that in there. You can see the CPM 3V on this full flat grind variant. So the reason it's cool to start here with this one is because this is the one that I feel like got everyone the most excited about the Demko knives. It's a full size knife. It's a full grip, and you don't feel like you're about to fall either off the bottom or off the top. If I had to pick a knife to slam into a wooden fence and hope that I could penetrate that fence, for a folding knife, the Demko 80/20 is probably the one I would choose. Now, I wouldn't do that to this particular knife, don't get me wrong, but if I needed something that could do extremely hard work as a folding knife, I don't think there's one in my collection I would pick over this. It's just a phenomenal beast of a knife, and it's just so cool. This is one of the very originals. This one is said to be 20 CV, in just looks wise versus my 3V variant, just in terms of how the actual blade steel's holding up and stuff, and patina. This one looks like it's probably stainless, and so that was really the only stainless he did. He did these in crew wear, 20 CV, 3V, and I think that was it in the early days. So that's pretty cool to have, one of those originals. And that brings me to this one. I don't know if I'm attached to this one long term, but for the people that were in early on the Demko knives, they didn't have the slots on them, and a lot of those kind of old school Demko guys, which I just love hearing these guys talk about back in the day, and cold steel and all this stuff, they love this variant because it kind of represents what you would see on an 80/15 like this, or an 80/10. It's one big slab of steel, and this one's 3V, and this is also one of these originals. In fact, I have the original box for this one, You can see here CPM 3V was written onto the box. So this is a very early variant with no slot. It's just really cool. 3V, got it hand etched there on the blade. I don't know if I'd call that the tang or what, this part of the blade up here, but I gotta go probably do a little bit of research or whatever. But man, that is a pretty cut and dry, big, heavy use knife, full textured titanium. These first few are all full size, full weight, but this would be the lightest of the bunch. This one is the full flat grind, and so they take quite a bit more material out. This one is also 3V though, also full textured titanium. You can see the shark lock now looks a little bit different than it did on some of these early ones. They were kind of a darker metal there that I don't know exactly what they did when they hardened them or whatever, but it is a little bit different looking there. This one's a pretty cool one. I don't know if I'm attached to this one long term. I do kind of like it. It is still a clip point, but this sort of fuller only, it looks a little weird to me. It's a little light. I did grab this one off a drop, so it's the only full textured titanium I've ever grabbed off a drop, which was pretty cool. But this one might not be the long-term knife in my collection, so we'll see what happens on that one. And I'm turning these over as I go through them so I don't lose track. So if you see that these are no longer in the same direction, that is why. Which brings me to one of my favorite knives in the collection. We just talked about lightness. And this is the Drop Point 8020S with the only one that I have that has, and I've had a few of these, but I didn't realize how rare they were, and I sold a few, which I kind of regretted, but the lightened scales inside there, which is super rare, it turns out. There's only a few of them made like this, and this thing is just sweet. This one took me a long time to find, the longest of any of the ones I was really heavily pursuing, in fact. I finally found a gentleman that was willing to trade for it and was very thankful to finally get this in the collection. But that one's got a totally different feel to it. The weighting is very different with the handle and the blade. This 8020S, really just a cool variant there with the drop point blade shape. They did make a full size in drop point. I might try and grab one at some point, but it doesn't really do it for me as much as this lightweight version. I think is just a super cool variant and one that stayed in the collection. Which brings me to this next one. Also a really neat one. They did make this without a thumb stud, by the way, but I do really like this thumb stud version. This is the Slicer Shark. Slicer Shark, right? Yeah. In the 8020S, totally different jimping. Again, if you've noticed as I've gone through these, they've all had very different jimping, which is kind of a fun little fact about the Demko knives. And this guy right here is sweet. This one does have full size, even though it's an 8020S. It has full weight, I should say, scales. So this is no slouch in terms of weight, but a really neat blade shape. They just brought out sort of a Slicer Shark-ish looking version of the full-size 8020 in Magna Cut, which was really cool. I did not get in on that drop. It was at like 7 a.m. Pacific or 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Totally missed it. But I wouldn't mind having one of those in the collection. That'd be kind of cool. It's like swedged and stuff, but this is a pretty neat one. This was a new blade shape, you know, basically a spear point. If you look at what we got going on there, it's not exactly a spear point. It's actually a little more than a spear point. It's actually, you know, gets a little close to what I'm going to look at next, which is their shark foot. So it gets a little bit of best of both worlds between the drop point and clip point and the shark foot all in one. So that's a pretty neat variant. That one's also M4, I believe. Let's just double check. The one before that, I'll go back and take a look at that as well. Yeah, CPM M4, which they haven't done in a ton of knives, so that makes that one kind of cool as well. And this one was LMAX on the lightened one. They may have done that in S45VN as well, which I would also think would be a great variant, but I don't have it. I don't think I've had an S45VN variant other than this one right here for a while now. Those all came out a while back. And that is the last of just sort of this series of textured tie aside from the custom knives here. This is a full weight, and I did have this in a lightweight, which I regret selling. Shark Foot 8020S. So you can see again different jimping there than the others. And the shark foot blade, which I think is just one of the coolest blade shapes ever made. I freaking love it. I have a ton of them over here for my 80-20.5 collection that I use quite a bit. And that is a pretty sweet variant there that has stayed in the collection. These were sort of the original 80-20S, were the drop point and shark foot. So these two are long-term keepers for me in terms of my collection, along with, at least that one. I'd say these sort of, I'm sorry, I meant these two, not this one. This one, this one, this one, I could be talked into a trade or a sale on those potentially, but it's really neat kind of having this full, 6 textured titaniums. And maybe I'll skip ahead to this one. I'll come back to it in a second. So this guy up here is my first custom, and it is quite a beauty. I don't know that they had a name for this. I don't think it was the whale shark. I think that was a slightly different, I could be wrong. This could be the whale shark, but it was one of the very first that they did with the peanut fuller, which I thought was really cool. And it's just got this really cool blue ano with like a distressed bronze ano underneath, bronze hardware, bronze pocket clip, bronze back spacers. And one of the first, you can see here, this was 2022, hand ground 2022. One of the first that he did in Magna Cut, or that I should say they did in Magna Cut, which is really cool as well. This one has a really thick blade all the way to the end. You can see how far it goes out there because the way the grind starts a little lower on the blade, but just this beautiful hand ground, belt ground satin. One of the coolest ones I've seen that was ever made. I've seen a few like this in other colors, and I've seen a few with this kind of handle shape in this color in like a 80-20 compact, which was pretty neat. I'd love to match up with this if I could have ever, like track one down and either make a purchase or a trade deal on that. That'd be pretty neat to have the same one, or maybe someone wants to make me an offer for that so that they can match their 80-20 compact, because I think those two would go really well together. And that's just one of those, like, Demko just does a few styles. Here's another one that they did that's a pretty cool style. If you haven't seen the videos on this one, it's only like 5.5 ounces, even though it's a full size, full thickness 80-20. And it has this one-off crazy like whale Tanto or whatever you want to call it. It's like a mix of variants for them. And it has these sculpted tie, like blue or green tie liners that just hit off the Ultim and make these crazy colors and stuff. So this is one of those ones that's been in the collection for a minute, but blue tie ano here, green tie ano here, just the whole thing came together, I think, really well. It's crazy light and just this really cool version of what Demko is capable of. This blade shape is a one-off. They've never done it before or since. Kind of a crazy swedge on it, crazy high grind here into the peanut. Tanto with this like semi-stinger tip. They have this Tanto stinger that to me looks a little shorter than this and not quite as attractive. I think this thing is just one of the coolest looking blade shapes I've ever seen. That thing is just savage and really cool. Let me get this flipped over so I can stay consistent here. We're flipping and going this way once we've gone through them. Okay. But yeah, this Ultim is just a crazy, crazy variant, which brings me to one of my favorite knives in the collection. Maybe my favorite of the Demko. It's kind of funny because when I first got it, I wasn't so sure about it, but it's probably my favorite Demko in the collection. It's between that one and this 80-22 here, honestly. This one is one of the very early Demko 80-20 compacts, which is a really quirky model. It's 3D blade steel, as you can see, and what you may notice if you're looking at it versus the other ones you've just seen is it has these very thin scales. They're not milled out inside like that 80-20S drop point was, where it's that lightweight version. They've literally thinned down the scale. I don't know how they did it exactly, but milled it down, and then they actually changed the handle shape. So you'll see the handle shape is a little different versus this guy over here. You can see, kind of this sort of semi finger choil, and it has like a full-size grip, but it's like a compact knife. It's It's just crazy cool. Hand ground, swedged. You got this sort of mini fuller. It is a really cool variant. 80/20 compact, one of the original 80/20 compacts. They did make a shark foot version of this that I might even like more than this. I don't know. But this one's really grown on me, and it is one of probably my top 20 knives in my collection, and my #1 Demko, I'd say. Super cool 80/20 compact. Gosh, I can just look at that thing all day. Also textured tie from Blade Show 2023. I don't know which show that was from, but it was something probably 2021 is my guess on that. This is 2023, super high grind on this 80/22. This is the latest version of the 80/22 that they brought out last year in 2022. This is a non-prototype. This one says hand ground 2023. It was Blade Show 2023. This is Magna Cut, which is super cool. And just one of the neatest knives in the collection. Also, I'd say textured titanium. Just the grip on this thing is super efficient, the weight and everything. For a textured titanium carry knife, this would be very high on my list. Just a really cool one. You can see it's lightened on the inside of the scales and everything. There's a lot going on here. Crazy ambidextrous pocket clip that can switch both ways. Unique Demko design there. And the color scheme and everything. There's only like one or two at the show I thought were maybe cooler than this. The one that was in that color scheme. And aside from that, this is one of the coolest ones I've seen for an 80/22. And super importantly, it matches one of my favorite knives in my collection, the Demko 80/22 prototype, which was in fat carbon. These were Magna Cut. And you can see here, these were actually hand ground 2022 #9. So this is prototype #9. I think they made 20 something, somewhere around the 20 to 25 range. Maybe they made 22, which would be kind of funny. But I think that's what he does. By the way, if you don't even know this, which I didn't know for a while, the Demko models 8010 came out in 2010, 8015 came out in 2015, 8020 was actually originally an 8017. There's this one random one called the 8017 that my friend Jeff has that came out at Blade Show 2023 this year. Was the prototype of this knife, and then they went into production in 2020, and they called it the 8020. So cool. 2022 prototype. That's why this one's called the 8022. Super cool fact about these knives, and it's probably why that's called the 8020.5. Because a lot of people are like, why did they do that? That's so confusing. But if you look at the way that they do they must have come out with these two knives in like the same year. So maybe they could have made that the 8017 and the 8020 instead or whatever. But I love that being the 8020, frankly. Just awesome name. 80 stands for Enter Demko, in case that wasn't obvious. So this one had a slab, not camo, but fat carbon scales. I don't know if this is called like the jumbo carbon or whatever. And you can see this guy's got this little, I don't know if it's super hard to see in this lighting, but textured. Let me zoom in, then it'll be a little more obvious. There we go, sculpted on the scales. You can see that sculpting all around it. It makes it feel really cool in hand. So I love that. Freaking love this knife. This knife is just radical. It's not perfect. Definitely feels a little bit like a prototype to me, but man, the grip in hand is like one of my favorite in the entire collection because the way it's rounded off, and it's just got a little bit of convex to it. It's not a lot, but the way it's rounded on the sides of the scales and everything, which also looks cool, the way that the carbon fiber manifests itself when you do that. So cool, the layers. Just one of the coolest feeling, sounding, looking knives, I think, in the collection. Just a masterpiece here. So 8022 prototype brings me back to the 8015. I only have one of these. It came as part of a collection. I bought multiple knives from this guy, including this 8022. And I think that's the only one that's remained in the collection from that purchase. But I do have a Hawk Deadlock from him as well. Swedge up here on this 8022. This is a rare machine ground satin. So he did do some custom 8022s. This won't be mistaken for that, or I should say shouldn't be mistaken for that. This is not one of the ones that has the lock on it. Some of them have a lock on it. It's just a crazy locking mechanism. It's like you look at it and you're like, how does that even hold the blade steady? But just such perfect engineering, such precision. And you grip down on that thing and it just makes it tighter. It's one of the coolest things out there. Called the Scorpion Lock. I remember the original name. I can't remember the original name. I saw the patent filed on it, and it is some wacky name like about a folding knife. It totally underestimates like the craziness of it. But it's a neat one. I don't know if this is a long-term staple in my collection. This one's an OD Green G10, but this 8015 is pretty neat, and I haven't gotten super motivated to sell it. Extremely smooth, by the way. It's like, how is that metal on metal and yet it's so smooth? The way this basically rolls here, it's crazy smooth. So that's a fun one for sure. All right, 80-20.5s. One of my good friends, the first knife I ever bought from him when I met him is this 80-20.5 Timascus. I should say one of my good knife community friends. It's not like he and I hang out a lot, but we did do the Maker Syndicate show together, and you spend enough time in line with someone, you start to call them your good friend, I guess. These are 3V. This is one of the original runs. I think they've done a few more since, but love the kind of dark look on the blade from the 3V, starting to get that little bit of patina. I think they come out of the factory like that, to be honest, but man, just this crazy smooth Timascus scale. This is actually the one that's in all the stock photos, so you can see the Timascus patterns kind of characteristic with these two, I don't want to call them voids, but like non-swirl-like areas here, and like the knife center version of it, and all these different ones have the picture of this exact Timascus knife, which makes it a little extra cool to me. And it was carried lightly, so this thing is just really smooth because it's gotten a little bit of use on it. The blade edge is perfect, brand new, but the action's just phenomenal. It's the best action I have of any of my 20.5s. Definitely a long-term keeper. And just a very cool knife. Not for everyone, of course. Definitely on the extreme side. And then I just have one of the textured titaniums for an 80-20.5. I used to have a bunch of them, but just narrowed it down to this one, which I think is like kind of my go-to for like something that's still pretty light but feels strong. If I want something a little more hefty than like a Benchmade bug out or whatever, and don't want it to just be utilitarian, I want like an actual clip point or drop point, more of a self-defense kind of tip. This is like one of my go-to, just knowing that the Demko 3V blade steel is gonna hold up through anything I can throw at it. It's a mini tough knife, if you will. This is my daily user that I do all my unboxings with. I still don't understand, on Metal Complex Show and others, why they don't use an actual knife for their unboxings. It's kind of funny to me. I get that thing that, whatever he calls it, the toenail might be more effective, but, like, what better opportunity to use your knives than on your unboxings? You can see mine's gone through a lot of cardboard, and the stonewash even has some marks in it. I think I did recently clean it a little bit so it doesn't look too stuck up. Man, this thing's gone through probably 5 sharpenings now, and just not full-on sharpenings, but 5 sharpening / drop events, and it just continues to impress me. I do have one of these. I don't have a box for it, but one of these serrated version. Apparently, as the story goes, Andrew Demko wanted one for himself, so he had to order 600 due to the minimum from his Taiwan manufacturing. So I think that's just kind of funny. So I've got one in the collection just because of that story more than anything else. And then here is our garage knife. Bright orange, easy to find. It's actually even probably got a little bit of gunk on it right now, but I did clean it recently. This one's D2. We don't use it as much because we don't break down boxes in the garage as much as we do up here, but man, the edge is held up pretty darn well. So this thing's pretty impressive to me. This was a Knife Center exclusive. Actually, one of my videos that got one of like the most views for whatever reason is this D2 Knife Center exclusive unboxing. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but now it comes to mind now that I bring it out here. So this one doesn't make it on the video too often, but it is here in the collection, and one that I have kept longer term. keep turning these in the wrong direction as I go here. Last but not least, I do have a few, and I couldn't fit them on the screen, but I have three full-size, three free reins. This week, I actually have a few knives coming. So I have a few knives coming from Demko to review, and there are some fixed blades. So there's a new version, I think it's called the Armiger. They're doing a free Demko giveaway right now, by the way, so go check it out. But I got a few of those in the mail to check out. I just think this Magna Cut is like one of my favorite fixed blades in my collection. Magna Cut Demko, $199. I don't know how many more of these they're going to do, but they did a couple drops. And man, I feel like if you missed out on that and you're a big, that's a 5-inch knife, big USA made fixed blade fan, that's kind of a no-brainer. I mean, maybe not the most beautiful handle of all time, but you could always upgrade that, I guess. I think that's just such a cool variant that they made this, beautiful Magna Cut fixed blade here in the USA, and they only did a few runs of these, so I'm not sure if they'll do many more of those in the long run. Hopefully if they do, maybe they'll do some different handle materials and stuff. This Armiger looks like they're bringing out some new ones. I think one of the cool things about the free rein is the pocket clip. It's pretty neat. So I think that's about it for now. Please like, subscribe. Let me know if you feel like I'm missing anything critical in the collection from Demko. I do feel like that first Magna Cut swedged full textured tie belongs in the collection. Like, I would like to get one of those just because I think that's cool. Their first production Magna Cut knife. It's an 80-20 that just came out. That one's definitely on my personal short list, but if there's some cool Demko, I don't have an 80-10 because I just don't really love the model. I find the locking mechanism is not really for me. And I find it just a little clunky, frankly. But teach their own. Feel free to let me know, and I'll try and see if I can find it and do a review or something like that. But I feel like this is a pretty cool. That was just down to 18 knives or so, sampling of what Demko has to offer. So all for now. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.